commissions are coming up. I'm finding my school life. So that's what they have done.
Janice, on my brain.
Lisa Todd, you need a motion to approve the 21-22 budget. Okay.
This was given to us.
Oh, all right, I've got 7:03 board members present this evening are Thorsland, Khan, Banky, and Persky. Persky is with us remotely, and Eric is absent this evening. We'll move to 3.0, the open forum public comments. I did not receive any for this evening. 4.0 is the approval of the agenda. So one change to the agenda under Brenda's monthly financial reports. We'll need to motion to approve the 21-22 budget that she will present tonight. Anything else that may have been missed on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda with that addition.
So moved.
Motion by Scott.
I'll second.
Second by Shannon. Any further discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 5.0 is the approval of last meeting's minutes. Are there any changes, additions, subtractions to those previous minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve, Corey.
Okay, motion by Danny,
I'll second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 6.0 is the resolution to accept the gifts, donations, and grants for this month.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Shannon,
I'll second.
second by Danny. Any discussion on the gifts, grants, and donations? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. 7.0 is student council. No student council. Okay, we'll move on to 8.0, which is the consent agenda. Taking motion to approve that as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Scott,
I'll second.
second by Shannon. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, now the time that everyone's waited for, the monthly financial reports.
Okay. I'm going to jump right into the adopted budget that we're proposing, 43. You remember back in June, the board approved the preliminary budget, and we the total current information at that point in time. We have now went in and updated various things, anything from enrollment to staffing, capital project grants, construction fund as well. Now this will be considered our adopted budget, our official budget for the year, for 21-22. Majority of the changes happened in the general fund and the capital fund, but we did have a fair number of changes in the food and the transportation as well. I'm just going to focus on the updates. I'm going to try to be very brief. We did go through it in quite detail last June. So, but if you do have questions, let me know. You can certainly give myself or Mr. Illingworth a call in the office, or whatever questions you may have. On the left side of the worksheet, you see on page 43 is the preliminary that was approved back in June. On the right is the adopted budget that we're proposing. Now this front page, this page 43, is all general fund in the eyes of the state. We break them out, of course, and see what's happening in each of those. You'll see the cash flow shortfall from June to November is looking better, and there's two main reasons for that. First reason is enrollment. Enrollment that we were looking at back in the spring, very, very similar to what we're seeing now in the fall. We had a little bit of a dip at the middle school, high school, but the elementary is up slightly, so that compensated for that. Okay, kindergarten came in right on target, so we didn't have any issues there as well. Also, voluntary pre-K, which is our 4-year-old classroom over in Appleton, is very, very strong. It's got almost full classrooms in both of them. And so those pupil units, of course, we do have to pay for the teacher, but those pupil units flow through all of our funding streams. So that's a positive. So that's the first reason. Second reason is the funding formula. If you remember back in June, the legislature did not finish their work by the statutory deadline. So when we met in June at the June board meeting, we did not know for sure what our funding formula was going to be. So what we included in the budget was a 1% increase, which was $66. And I believe that was what the governor had proposed. When everything was said and done, I think probably June 30th or July 1st even, we ended up with a $161 increase, which was 2.45%. Okay, so that did help the bottom line there. And you'll see that in the general fund there. Our funding formula is now $6,728. ESSER 1, we spent a majority of that last school year. And the ESSER 2 is what we're spending right now. That is, we have about 526,000, and of that, we're budgeting 400 in the budget you see right here. We could budget and spend all of it, but we budgeted for 400,000. Of that, 275 are those add backs that the board approved back in March, April, May time period. And those are existing staff funded with COVID funds. So just keep that in mind. ESSER 3 we have not touched. That is the reason for the meetings that have been happening with community members. So that has remained untouched. And that is both the set aside and the regular ESSER 3. We also have COVID testing funding that we just received for this school year. That's about 40,000. We'll be able to spend on any costs that we would have that would be related to COVID testing. And then just a quick comment on special ed. Special ed, we did increase the budget from spring to fall by just over 60,000. I think I don't think it's going to be less than that. However, it will be maybe more than that, but we just didn't dare increase it any further. It's now become a formula that's filled with variables. Before we had a guarantee, and we no longer have that because that formula is phased out. So we're just going to have to keep watching those numbers and do our best in forecasting those in the future. Expenditures, those have been updated with staffing, and the biggest thing to talk about there are our overhead costs. Number one being insurance. We didn't get our insurance quote until right before the board meeting. That went up more than what we had expected. It went up by about 17,000, so we had to update the budget for that. And utilities, we did update them in June, and we have to update them again this fall because they're coming in very, very strong, very, very high. So we've updated them about 12,000 in the spring, and we had to update them again in this fall by about 72,000. So I hope that they're not that high, but I have to just wait and see. That's where the numbers are looking right now. So overall, in the general fund, it does look a little bit better from what we've seen back in the spring. And of course, that, like I said, was attributed to enrollment and then the funding formula. And so you see the shortfall there of 294,000. Now we're looking at about 177,000. But do again keep in mind that we are using some of our COVID money for existing costs.
So Brenda, can I interrupt?
Yes.
So board, I want to just emphasize what Brenda's sharing there, that we got a deficit in our ongoing budget of about $177,000. And with the ESSER money of the $400,000 that we're spending, $275,000 of that is ongoing. So you really need to add about $275,000 to the $176,000, which would show a deficit of about $451,000 of ongoing expenditures. And the only reason I emphasize that is a lot of districts are looking at ESSER money and they're forgetting it's one time, or it's going to run out by, ESSER 2 is going to be over in 2022. 23.
But we'll have that pretty much spent this year.
And we'll be looking to adjust that as we go through the remainder of the year.
Okay, hopping on to transportation, not a lot of changes there. The funding formula increase did impact that as well, so that was a positive. The big thing there was fuel. We did increase fuel by about $20,000 to hopefully compensate for the increase in pricing that we're seeing that has happened recently and since spring. Another large increase in this fund was special ed travel. And that is student need. It varies from year to year and even varies within the school year. So we do have in there right now what our current travel needs are. Could change. So it is what it is. I mean, we do provide that. So vehicle purchases are still in there at 60,000. And we also have the 2 extra shuttles that are being sent out here to the high school. We're paying for that with COVID funds as well. You'll see the shortfall there. And again, a big chunk of that is due to the special ed travel needs, and we will get a kickback on that next year. That's a 1-year delay on the funding, so not really in there. Capital did go through and update numerous things there, but the biggest items there that are noteworthy are the items that are pulled out in the special section there. You'll see in the preliminary, we had nothing down in that area. Now in the update this fall, the first item there, building project, that is what is left of the 800,000. We thought we'd have it all spent, but we did not. There's 77,840 left of the board's 800,000 commitment. Of course, that comes out of fund balance. Okay. Next line item is the gym floor at the high school. The 135 represents an estimate for the insurance recovery. Not sure where that will end up in the end, but that's just an estimate that's out there in the budget at this point in time. 213 represents the costs that we're aware of as of right now. The last line, Appleton Asbestos Project, that is the add-on of the asbestos removal at the elementary. And you'll see 0 for revenue, just because that is a 1-year delay as well. That will be included in our levy, and we will receive those funds. So basically, we'll pay for that in advance. We'll get the reimbursement next school year. Or actually, yeah, next school year. So you see quite a shortfall there. That a lot of that will obviously be coming out of fund balance. Okay. Student activity, no changes. Food service. Minor changes there. Tammy did update the milk costs. We have seen increases there as well. So we did update that. We also added, of course, the daycare program that we'll be servicing in Appleton at the Appleton site. We do have some more work to do on this fund. We are in a new program, and we actually wanted to see 1 more month of activity to see participation and that sort of thing running through our system. But we will be doing some work on this fund over the winter months. We actually had wanted to see this in a negative. Reason being, we do have some extra funds in this fund, and we are actually encouraged by the state to spend those on equipment. So over the winter months, we are going to look at what our equipment needs are in the kitchen area at all of our sites, and put together a list and see where that comes out. And we'll do an update then in the spring for that fund. Community ed, Steve did make changes on that throughout. Biggest change, however, of course, is the daycare program in Madison. You'll see the changes, you'll see that line item broken out in its special section there, and you'll see the shortfall there. For the November update is a shortfall of 30,000. Now do keep in mind that does not include any of the new things that have been happening over this last month. We just received a check in November now from the Madison Healthcare for 20,000. That is not included in here. We have various other commitments that I believe will be talked about later on in the meeting, and those are not in here as well. This is what we're sitting at right now. So I think it's probably clean doing it that way, and now we'll be able to add all of those back come spring and see where we're at, and then of course final numbers will come out sometime after that. Building construction fund, that was updated to represent what is in our fund balance. So with this scenario, we have $5.3 million left as of June 30th in the construction fund. So what this is saying is all of that will be spent at the end of the school year. Will that happen? I don't know, but that's how we're budgeting it. And if there's a little bit that ends up pushing into the following fiscal year, then we'll budget for that come spring or come June. But this would be spending everything that's in the fund, this 5.3. Okay. Next page, really no comments on that. Big changes or anything. Just keep in mind that the custodial fund should be negative. That will go away. That fund is done. And the revocable trust also should be negative. As we're drawing on our trust dollars, so that should be negative. The flow, I should say, the flow in that fund, because we're continually each year drawing on those funds. So that's where that should look. Any questions on this or the earlier stuff? Okay. I still do not have the audit in hand. It's in transit in the mail. So as soon as I get it, I will get it to each of you. And then we will have that on the board agenda for December and approval on that. And then just a reminder, we need a motion on what we just went through with the budget. This question.
Okay, so if we took ESSER out, we'd be at a $451,000 deficit this year. And we're how far off on our unreserved balance
Well,
to our policy?
I think, I don't think I brought my fund balance worksheet with. I want to do some recalc. When we see the audit on that, the auditors are going to be putting in their audit report that number is quite a bit higher than probably, it probably will be a board decision on that, I think, once we get to that point, because when the auditors figured that number and put it in the report, I think it's like 1.8 million or something like that, what they have, or 1.9 million even what they have in the report. They included all the COVID expenditures as operating expenditures, which is inflating that number. So we are going to need to talk about that, what level that is desired.
Yeah, if I could jump in. So with COVID, if you include all the COVID revenue we have in addition to our regular revenue, it's going to be an inflated number if you stay at your 17%. So Brenda and I have talked about that would not be appropriate. We would be basically having your fund balance goal, I think, is 17%, and that should be of our regular ongoing revenues and expenditures. So I'm just going to give a ballpark number. I think we're at about $1 million or maybe 1.1 million in unreserved general fund, and it should be about 1.7 million, 1.67 or something like that. So a ballpark is around $500,000 light that we are, to answer Corey's question. And we have the specific numbers, but we talk that we don't want to, we're trying to be very transparent, so we don't want the inflated number that comes about to be the basis of the fund balance. Otherwise, you'll be increasing that number by a couple $100,000.
Okay, so if Esther is out, we're at just under $1 million deficit. Deficit and short of unassigned reserve.
Right, about $450,000 in budget and around $500,000 in the difference between what the balance is and what it should be. Couple other questions you might have or that I'm just anticipating is in that $451,000 that's shown there, we've calculated about $26,000 of what would be lane changes in the negotiations for next year. So that's included, but otherwise the base has been left at zero. So that we have a point to recognize here's where we're at today. And so any changes that come about would be reflected in a new number in terms of what the deficit would be. And there's all kinds of ways we could do it, but we thought that would be the most transparent way to present this. Of where we are as we, roll through this next month and a half. We know what our fund balances are. We know what our budget is now. Given a couple inflated numbers that we're guessing at for utilities, because utility costs not only are going up because of inflation, but they're going up because we have a lot more property we're heating and cooling than we did the last couple of years. And getting a handle on that is a rascal.
Okay.
So if you want some good news, the Vikings won yesterday. And the Cowboys lost, by the way.
So it looks like Rick will have to go through that same exercise we did last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that since I came here, whether it's talking to staff or with you, you pointed out to me, this is where we thought we might be. As Brenda said, the enrollment has remained fairly stable. I think from those beginning numbers, we're down just 2 or 3 kids or something like that, which is wonderful. And so I don't think there are any surprises here. We are going to start a process not too far down the road of working with leadership across the district to say what would be some options to correct our budget as we move through the next year. It's not a secret either that we have, I think, $1.1 million of ESSER money. We're going to talk about the ESSER 3, this is just ESSER 3 now, but that money is about $235,000 of what's called Ed Finance 161, and we've got a whole section coming up in our agenda to talk about what kind of feedback did we get from the community, from staff, from students, and others that we've spent some time with. And that leaves about $900,000 of ESSER, it's called 160 money, that could be very timely in terms of helping us correct some one-time adjustments that we have to make with fund balance. And but we got to be very careful going forward that we know what is one-time money or savings and what is ongoing revenue. And but we anticipate coming out with plans that will give you options to consider as we move forward, and will be very well thought out. And those options are choices. We got to do a good job of communicating with the public also, because they need to understand we're not flush. We're at a point where some things have to be decided upon, and maybe some other options have to be created. So it's a combination of reductions and possible revenue raising, but that'll all flush itself out over the next couple months. What we would not want to do, though, I would just hasten to say, is we would not want to go through this whole exercise and then a year from now be in the exact position that you're in now again. Because when you don't take care of business, you just create a death spiral, so to speak, where the whole district's always just looking doom and gloom, and we don't have to be there. So it'll give us a chance to work that out going forward.
Any other questions on the budget? Danny, anything?
Not at this time, thanks, Corey.
Yep. All right, then I will take a motion to approve the 21-22 budget as presented.
I'll make the motion. Oh,
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Shannon, seconded by Scott.
Yep.
Any further discussion on the budget? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 10.0 is bills and claims.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 2021 board bills of $176,178.37. The October 21 manual checks for $52,332.63. And the November 21 construction bills of $318,963.96 for a grand total of $547,474.96.
Okay, we got a motion by Scott. I'll second that. Any questions on claims or bills? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 11.0 is the letter of agreement with Union 70.
Board, what I would say about that is if you look at exhibit number 12, it's very similar to the exhibit or to the agreement that you entered with Union 70 last summer. It actually shows the same amount of compensation for Union 70 members who may serve as substitutes in one capacity or another. And so we're appreciative of the union agreeing to this agreement. And we're also very appreciative to our entire staff who are stepping up when they're asked. I get a daily kind of report from Sue Volk every day, and it is quite a matrix that she has to put together to find people to be here in classes every day. But our staff's doing a great job of helping us when they're asked, and we greatly appreciate that. When I say our staff, I'm talking about our regular teaching staff who are agreeing to sub during their preps or take classes in combination. Really, we're asked to help with. So we would need agreement from you guys approving this in terms of board action tonight.
Any additional questions on this, or? No? Then I'll take a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Excuse me, motion by Scott,
I'll second.
second by Danny. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. So they're gonna get $8 extra from what they're getting paid now. Is that correct? If they have a short term, and
Yeah,
are they gonna get do they have to get the license?
the law provides that we can use them the same way as we did last spring or last year, this time. So if a teacher of ours, let's say, is home, having to teach from home, and one of our paraprofessionals goes in and helps out in that classroom, which they're normally in anyway, they're not the teacher of record, but they're helping keep order and helping things go.
Right, that's the 275, right?
That's a 275.
But the $8 is like, so if a parent has a bachelor's degree,
if the para has a bachelor's degree and we can employ them as a, I forget what a short-term sub,
Yep,
then they would get $8 additional an hour
from their para pay.
over and above whatever their paraprofessional pay is. Then they would be the teacher in control of that classroom because we have no one else.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Scott and Maureen, did I miss anything there? We're good? All right.
If not, I'll take a motion to approve. Or I did already, so any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
And opposed, motion carries. Presentation, the development training program for bus drivers. Kristen,
I didn't really do the presentation of this.
oh,
So Kristen has talked to me, and I just want you guys to be aware that she's in the process of getting some bus driver training program in place where she will be a trainer of specific things for our bus driving crew as we come down the home stretch. I think it's by February 7th. Is it federal law?
Yeah, it's federal law and it's enforced by FMCSA. And we as a school district have to be registered with them to be able to train. And I had started the registering with them, but then I stopped and I went, I might need to have to prove that I have a training program, so I stopped. Decided I better come up with an actual training program that's like written, and then I'll finish when I'm done. And I thought maybe if I'm gonna have a training program, the board would wanna know and probably approve it. And so that's when I called Rick or sent him an email about it. Basically, what it is, anyone who wants to increase their license from a D or a C, go to a B or an A, has to go.
On our behalf, and we want you to know what's going on.
okay. We'll backtrack to 12 since I skipped over that. The snow removal, back to 12 since I skipped over that. The snow to 12 since I skipped over that. The snow removal quotes. So we have from Appleton, we have Tossels, and from Madison, we have Wolfschlagers.
Yeah, both of these folks were have done this for us in the past. I'm very appreciative of both Dan and Chris for being willing to do it again. They have plenty of other work, but we really don't have anybody else that stepped up, and they were both willing. So we'd appreciate it if you'd approve these quotes, and that's what their compensation level will be as we go through the year, in case it snows, right?
Any questions on the quotes at all? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
So,
Go ahead, Danny.
no, Shannon got it. Thanks.
Oh, sorry. He can be second.
Motion by Shannon, seconded by Danny. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. All right, now back on track. 14.0, the Safe Routes to School MnDOT Infrastructure Grant. Maureen,
Yes. So the objective of the grant is to create a safe pedestrian, vehicular traffic pattern in and around the school. With the addition, we've created some new challenges, if you will. Thanks, Kristen, she's had a mess, but it's getting better, and we're working through it. And one of the requirements for this grant is a school board resolution supporting any projects that would need to happen. And then also funds, if any, required to be supplied by the school to complete the project. There shouldn't be any monetary encumbrance on the school with the grant. The minimum amount of the grant is $50,000, and anything I'm planning on doing is all well within that $1,000 amount. The potential work will be based on a May 2021 Black Pearl Valley Safe Routes to School engineering study that was completed by SRF Consulting Group. It will be crosswalks that will include removable bollards, crossing signs, things like that, pavement markings, and the carpool lanes, and signage. Timeline, the letter of intent was due in October. On November 10th, I received information from Mitchell Kleiker from MnDOT indicating that I could move forward with the full application. That application was available on the 16th of November and it's due on January 7th. So that's, and I do have a handout I could have given you all of that as well.
That's okay.
So basically, I just am requesting a resolution to support the grant application.
Okay. And this is just your site, Maureen?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can give you all of that. I should have handed it out prior to. You want a little more reading.
If we don't get enough,
I know,
right?
yeah, right, I know you do.
Any questions?
So it's basically a lot of signs, some striping or other.
Crosswalk striping, the goal would be to put crosswalks on Edquist and Robertson, and then perpendicular across Edquist, as well as Gulkey and Robertson, and then perpendicular to that across Robertson. You know, just really to make it obvious. Those movable bollards, we would put those in as well.
Okay.
Things like that. I'm also seeking approval from the city because it's on their property, so I will need a resolution from them as well. That was at the city council meeting last week, talking about it.
Any questions, any more questions for Maureen on this? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the resolution, which is on page 8.
Like motion.
Motion by Scott,
I'll second.
second by Shannon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Hey.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. 15.0 is the Lac Pearl Valley Facility Use Program with the key card access policy.
You guys look on page 56, the actual package in there, but the cover looks like this, nice and red. The newspapers will be, it'll be out in the newspapers, the staff knows about it, it's on Facebook, it's on the radio. So when you look at the packet more closely, the second page, you have not seen that. Dave Raddatz worked on it. It's a key card access policy, which will, I'm guessing, will be in our manuals or whatever in our school. The purpose of the policy is to provide your security. This page is also on the second page. Talks about the enforcement too. It's also on the second page, which is the indoor facility use, which you okayed last, or you accepted last. There have been some changes made. The admin staff has been great with all the changes. Matter of fact, we even got it down to not having pets in the facility. So we put that, no chemical use and alcohol. So Dave did that 808, and it's pretty self-explanatory if you read through it. And then what the enforcement is. As I said, a lot of this verbiage is on the next page also. So they're gonna come to our office. The process is they're gonna come to our office and they're going to read this packet. They're gonna read the verbiage, the key access policy. They're gonna look at the indoor facility use, And it's 2 pages. On the 3rd page, we have parents signing. So if my wife Jody and I were on it, I would put Jody Sterwood, Steve Sterwood, everybody else under it. I put my kids under it. And then if you utilize the building and you have grandma and grandpa coming, one of those two, either my wife or I, have to be present as per this agreement. And if there's kids there by themselves, then they kind of go on a 3-month probation and then we bring them back. Dave also created the key card access agreement. So this is another quite clearly. And then after that, we have the 3 maps. The yellow, you guys don't have yellow, but it's like this. Yellow is the accessible areas in each building. So when it talks about access to the accessible areas, if you're not in one of those areas, you should probably try to get in one of those areas because we have cameras. So, and then the last thing that we put in is in each of our main gyms, we have these little, we have directions that we got from Mr. Stender, but the baskets can raise and lower up and down by a keypad. And these instructions that, you know, an MMN that they have on the wall, they weren't very good. So Kip had the custodians or he put together instructions in the back so that we can use that. So, any questions? And then the addendums, the addendums that are in your packets: no alcohol and substance abuse, no animals or pets prohibited. The word area was taken out of the title on the information page, on the first signing page. Am I missing anything, Rick?
No, I think the only thing I can think of is that the policy, this would be the first reading of the policies. So over the next couple board meetings, we'd have the 2nd and 3rd readings before you get it to official adoption. Yeah, otherwise, no, I don't think you missed anything. Good job.
We have started the process. I know that Tony, you had Barb over at MMN put on the school calendar, not the calendar. She also had us put the dates on. So it's on the regular calendar, under the activities calendar, but on the actual calendar, if you go and look up on your phone and put calendar, the staff should be able to see on MMN who's using it, like dance, PIO classes. So we're gonna get them both ways so they understand. But this stuff started, we got this out last Monday and we have 3 teachers, but I'm guessing after tomorrow it goes through the papers that we'll have a run.
That's good. Do we, on the instructions to get the hoops down, does it also have the instructions to get the hoop further down to the 7 foot or 6 foot?
I think they go down to 7 feet, 8 feet.
8 feet? Okay.
And the directions are the same regardless of what facility that we're using throughout the whole district. So it's one policy. And we'd be looking for action to approve this tonight.
I was just wondering if $10 for a replacement is kind of low. So like people can keep track of them a little bit better, like for money wise.
What do the cards actually cost to get?
$5.
$5?
$5 or $6, yeah. And we bought we got a whole box of them.
We thought it was reasonable, and the way to start, if somebody loses their key, Dave or the technology director just kills the thing and has to reassign a new code to a new fob. So I guess if we lose a lot of them, we can come back and change the policy as we go, but we're hoping people will be very careful with them.
The teachers who are part of this, they'll have their regular fob, and then they'll have the fob that we give them. So they'll actually have 2 fobs so that we can better regulate, Dave and I can better regulate who's in the building and stuff.
Are these thin cards? Are they like thin credit card type or?
No, you have it, yeah.
Oh, that?
Key fob.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And the nice thing about it is they can be shut off in a split second.
If they can get a hold of Julie in a split second. Thank you, Julie. All right, any other questions or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Scott,
I'll second.
second by Danny. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Steve and team, for getting this going. Appreciate it. 16.0 is the resolution for the State High School League Foundation. Tony, do you want to give us an explanation, please?
Yeah, Form A is back and running this year. The State High School League is normally two applications, a Form A and a Form B. They're not doing Form B this year, only Form A. Form A is for free, we have to take a look at free reduced numbers. We have to submit that information and then they give us money back. So things that we can use to help offset some costs, like participation fees and some of that type of thing. It's one of those things where as long as we apply for it, we're gonna get funds. Some schools do it, some schools don't. I think it's a good program for us to continue to stick with and apply for again. I have the page 66 here. I just need the signature and the clerk's signature, and I will get it off to the State High School League tomorrow.
Okay, so this is the fund that we use if students can't afford the.
Scholarship money.
Okay. Any other questions for Tony on this piece? Hearing none, then I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Shannon,
I'll second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 17.0, consideration of our gym floor, basically insurance claim at this point.
So Board, I have this on the agenda because at some point, I was thinking you're probably going to want to deal with one of these options. Or you probably know more about it than I do from an insurance perspective, but I did talk to Ryan Young. He said currently the situation is as described there. And Brenda and I had an amount of $135,000 in the budget. It's actually $130,000 that has been offered to settle the contract at this point. The most that you could get based on the damage that had been done was $155,000. Their first offer was $107,495. Ryan went through some options there that maybe you want to talk about, Corey.
Yeah, so we've been in negotiations with them for quite some time, and the last thing we presented to them was actually video footage of the floor being taken up. Clearly, from what I can see, and at least what from Ryan can see, is that those boards get a little darker around half court. The 117 puts it at about the free throw line, maybe the 3-point line going north. And the 155 represents if it went all the way out to half court, which we believe it did. Unfortunately, our folks at Site Logic failed to get their contractor to actually videotape and or take photos of that floor as they were tearing it up, and they just tore it up. And our cameras are mounted in the corners of the gym, so they're not necessarily right on top of it. And Secura came back and said, though that's great that you got video footage, but we don't have anything photographic, nor do we have any boards left over that their adjuster could actually physically look at. So I believe that SiteLogic is probably on the hook for about 25,000 to get us to that 155 for their failure to document it as we had told them via email and also in person with the site manager for this facility. So we do maybe have an option with them. But right now, as far as Secura is concerned, they're at their final offer of 130. We could file for arbitration, but there's going to be some costs associated with that. It's also more than likely, without photographic or video evidence of those actual boards, probably going to be pretty hard to prove. So right now we'd be looking at, if we did the 130, we'd be looking at a delta of about $92,000.
The other thing that I would add is, according to Ryan, that if we do settle for any amount, the insurance company would make us, or part of the conditions would be we would sign a document that said there are no further claims. This is a full and final settlement of all claims. So if you were talking about SiteLogic or any other or an entity, other insurance company, all that would go away based on the settlement piece. I don't know if you want to turn this back to the facilities committee, tell them to figure something out, or if you as a board are ready to take some action tonight, or.
I guess I wouldn't be in favor of taking action tonight because of it's going to absolve Secura, SiteLogic, and the actual contractor that was stupid enough to drill a hole through one of our sprinkler lines. So I would probably kick it back to buildings and grounds.
I'd agree with that then.
Danny, any thoughts?
I concur with your assessment.
Okay, Shannon, you okay with that?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so we'll move that to the Buildings and Grounds Committee to investigate further. 18.0, staying in the same gym, now the sound system.
So I think Dave Raddick is with us tonight via the TV screen there, and I think either Dave or I have written what we want you to know in terms of the need for a sound system in that facility. And Dave has done a lot of work in reaching out to a couple possible suppliers. So Dave, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, the sound system has been very troublesome for the last 2-3 years. This volleyball season, it's been really challenging to get it to work and embarrassing, like a foghorn going off in the middle of a volleyball match. So I went through it and process of elimination, and there's a anti-feedback system that was causing squealing, even though it's supposed to be the anti-feedback system. The mixer was also just intermittent issues, so I eliminated those for now, put in a Yamaha mixer that I had for live streaming, and it's just limping along. So I went with the recommended Mid-States Audio. They're out of Sioux Falls. They did Montevideo's gym. They've done a lot of large arenas also, and fairly confident in the system that they spec'd out.
Dave, do they fine tune it for us too as part of this installation?
Yep, they do. So it's an all digital system. So they would come, install it, fine tune it. Everything is configured from an iPad. And so what they would go through and they'd just have presets. So if you have a basketball game, you can just select basketball game. There's nothing else anyone else has to be an expert at running it. So it's fairly locked down, all wireless. We can use it for, if choir wants to hook up to their mics with a snake, they'll be able to equalize their sound if they need to.
So there is a hardwire into it too, or is it all wireless?
There will be a digital input that you can hardwire in also, correct.
Okay.
So if there's a band or something performing and they want to hook up to it, they would be able to.
Okay. Okay.
So if you decided to take action on this tonight, the money would come from the capital outlay fund. Even if you were to take action tonight, I think Dave, jump on this, but it's 4 or 5 months out before we would get it installed, right?
Right. With the chip shortage, they said they have some of the equipment on order, but they couldn't promise when it was going to get here. So that was both vendors were fairly straightforward with that. Could be 4 to 5 months lead time.
Okay. I don't think we have much choice. So,
Maybe we can have it by graduation.
okay.
Time, somebody needs to sing the anthem, so Shannon, we'd like to thank you for showing up.
Okay. I charge. Just kidding. I'll take a pop for my efforts.
So I will take a motion to approve the Mid-States audio bid of $56,422. That'd be damn good for that price.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Shannon,
I'll second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Dave. All right, resolution establishing the location for absentee ballots. So I believe this is to avoid what we had for the referendum, to establish the 3 locations versus some of the Milan going to Montevideo and all that stuff. So City of Madison, it would be at City Hall for all of the town plus those townships, Civic Center for Appleton, and the City Hall of Milan for the Milan and surrounding townships. So I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Scott,
I'll second.
second by Shannon. Any further discussion on the polling places? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution establishing combined polling places. So that is the same, right? Lisa, it's the same as what we just did for where they would go. It's the, if we have to combine them, they all get combined to there. So general election?
It's just, so absentee ballots, you can only get them out here like we did the last.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Which one is?
Okay, so we'll do absentee ballots on this one then. So they would only be available at the school.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Shannon,
I'll second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion on the absentee? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, 21 is community feedback ESSER 3 funding.
So Lisa, do you pass these out? Okay. So board, last month I told you we were gonna spend quite a bit of time trying to get feedback from a lot of stakeholders throughout our school district. And we really had a pretty terrific response overall. Of course, the goal of all this was mandated by ESSER, or by the federal government, to get broad stakeholder input to talk about what to do with the ESSER 161 funds, which we already mentioned were around $235,000. And so we set all the meetings up and everything that's been described on this page to get some feedback. And then you should have a handout in front of you with two charts on it. The first one, the chart on the left, shows the results of the Black Pearl Valley website survey that we did. Julie actually posted a survey that we put together, giving a brief explanation and asking for feedback on the 17 items that are shown there. Community members, parents, staff members, and a couple students filled this out, but in a grand total, we had quite a few responses, given that it was out just a couple, 3 weeks. And the top 5 initiatives in terms of strategies as preferred by all the people that took that survey are shown at the right there. Then on the far right, we had a series of community meetings, and they're all described on page 11. We had a snowstorm in the middle of one of those, so we rescheduled, but we had community people, staff, members show up. Lisa and I went down to a meeting to meet with some elders or representatives from the Micronesian community, and we're working with Ann Thompson, who's been terrific in terms of being an advocate to help get information. Paul Lowry allowed me to meet with some of his REACH students back in September, and then, as you know, just before the meeting tonight, we met with Scott, had a student forum for with high school kids, and I thought that was very productive. We've asked all these people to use a DOT process to prioritize where they're at, and I don't have tonight's students on there, but you can see on the far right then that most of the priorities are very similar. In some cases in yellow, I only identified 1 or 2 if there were clearly a couple that were way out there, and then everything else was pretty even. But long story short, there is a high premium on community partnerships. In other words, partnering with other community organizations for the mental health, physical health, academic tutoring of something that would impact all of our kids. Another thing that was pretty high on the roster was additional student support, which was defined as more counseling or mental health help. Also, across the board, there was a lot of support for staffing to support smaller class sizes, provide more hands-on learning opportunities. As you know, with COVID, field trips and going to zoos, state parks, museums, and so on was cut way back. If we can open things up, allow that, that was preferred. And then the highest priority for the district, I was kind of excited to see across the board, was using some of that money to improve school culture throughout the district. And this could be among staff, could be among students, could be students to adults, or throughout the entire community. But remember, the primary thing here is we have to, or we're supposed to spend this money on things that have a strong likelihood to improve things for all of our kids. We're still waiting for some information from the Micronesian elders in terms of them articulating ideas, but they had some good ones when we were down there the other night. And Ann will be getting those to me, so I'll be able to include those in the grant request or the narrative that we have to submit to the Department of Ed. Once we submit this information to them, if you're okay with those priorities, in terms of being able to use that money between now and June 30th, Brenda, of 2023, then we will write the narrative along those lines and try to get them to approve that. And if they do, then once we got notice of that, then we'd sit down with staff and figure out what would those programs actually look like. We don't have to identify that going in, but we do have to, the money will be restricted to whatever we put into the grant as allocating that money across our entire community. So I think I'll just stop there. You've read all this stuff. If you have some questions, open to it, but otherwise, while I don't need school board action, I am looking for a nod of approval to go ahead and submit the narrative around most of those ideas.
Yes, thank you for your work on it.
You okay with that?
Go get them.
Yeah, so the next steps will be we're gonna sit down tomorrow and make sure everybody's on the same page with those, and then hopefully get this thing submitted by Thanksgiving. We also I just wanna say, we also collected some information on the world's best workforce that will be used to put that plan together. And that will be revolving around 5 goals. Just being ready for entrance into kindergarten, reading by the 3rd grade level, whatever our goals are. Gotta help me here. Preparing kids for post-secondary school, addressing our graduation rates, and this is across every school district in the state of Minnesota. And there's one more that I don't recall right now, but there are a total of 5 goals. And ours will be pretty comprehensive and done in a way that we can build on them in future years going forward. They can certainly change, but the idea behind these is to have SMART goals that everybody knows about and everybody has in focus moving forward. So,
All right, thanks, Rick. Move on to the building reports, Maureen.
Thank you to the board for the Literacy Cheese Trade Tables for American Education that we celebrated last week. Also last week, we had Chief Forest Guard Officer Thompson, School Resource Officer Wilson, and Chief Hodge from Benson, last year from Benson, in our building talking to our students about Alice and how to be locking down. And basically, their main message was to listen to the adult paperwork. Have respect for that. Open house last Thursday went very well. Thank you to Mr. Thorsland for helping the entire time. I really appreciate that. And we had a lot of community members who came to the open house and really appreciated being given a tour by our 4th grade tour guides, which was kind of fun for them as well. And thanks to all those who donated money and items for that. Questions for me right now?
Any questions for Maureen?
I'm not that boring, am I, Mr.
No. Not even close, no.
All right, thank you, Maureen. Kip? Kip tonight?
no, Kip has had another appointment tonight.
Okay, Scott?
Just our second night of middle school conferences will be tomorrow night. They've gone well. We've had pretty good attendance here so far, so that's always nice to see. With Thanksgiving coming up, we have our annual turkey bingo put on by Junior High Student Council, and we have a blast with that. So I think kids are looking forward to that opportunity. Quarter 2 midterms are looming already. Time is flying. Student forum tonight, thank you for participating in that. As always, I think that's just good feedback, and I think our kids appreciate being able to have the opportunity to be heard. So thank you. And lastly, Mr. Lowry brought in some fun information, some positive information today. We have a donation by the Nibby Foundation for just wanting to work with schools to provide support that primarily will help students with unique financial needs that might prevent them from maximizing their own education. So in a nutshell, really it's kind of what the ESSER money is for, like you've talked about tonight, but this is a private local grant. So have some ideas on how we might be able to help some kids after school with some tutoring type support and whatnot to give them a little extra guidance educationally. So we're just gonna start putting our feet to the ground and coming up with a plan and go from there. So we appreciate that support. Any questions for me?
Questions, Scott? Nope. Thank you, Scott. Lackawanna Valley Ed.
We had our pancake breakfast. We had a pretty good turnout, I think, over 100 people came to that. And then we also had conferences last week, and we'll finish them up tomorrow. We have our open house tomorrow night as well too, so we're excited to get people into the building to look at it. And then we had our Veterans Day program, and we really enjoyed all the different special music that took place there. And then I want to say thank you for the meat and cheese tray as well.
Just to piggyback off Marine's conferences, our open house, it was fun to see a lot of different people from the community and their positive comments about our building. And our book fair is running right now for conferences, and I don't want to quote, but I think Miss J. Melissa Jacobs had said, we already made it one night way more, like I want to say 1,500 more than we did in last year's because of the way things were set up, so people can actually come in now, which will give our library a lot of extra books. So, which is a good thing. We had a great Veterans Day program. We appreciated the high school band and choir that came out. And thank you again for the meat and cheese tray.
And we're representing the 7 through 12 science department. We'll just give a brief thing so we can wrap it up here. So we were up for new curriculum with science this year. So 5 through 12 is new curriculum. And we all went with not the same company, but similar phenomenon-based learning. So a lot more, like always, hands-on stuff and using data, making claims, using evidence to back it up, and learning about science that way. And it also helps us to all work together to use the same vocabulary, the same NGSS cross-cutting concepts and things like that. So that's been really good. I think we're all digging in and working through that. My classes in particular, I have 2 sections of Gen Chem, 2 sections of Advanced Chem, and 1 section of Physics. The Advanced Chem and Physics are for college credit, and there's 27 seniors taking Advanced Chem for college credit, which is more than half the class. So I think that really just speaks volumes about the work ethic of our kids and how much they're willing to dig in and get the job done.
I guess I just want a quick mention about the STEM room. It's been absolutely phenomenal to be able to get into there, and especially I've been in almost every morning with engineering class, working on different projects, being able to flex that out of my classroom and getting a lot of stuff off my tables in my classroom has been really, really nice. So I know it's been really handy too to be able to be in there with other teachers. I know one morning Mr. Clemenson was in there and we still were in there. Everyone was kind of working on their own things at the different spots, but it was a really, really great asset to have for the school.
I will talk a little bit about my classes. So I'm teaching 7th and 8th as I have in the past, and I also am teaching the accelerated 9th grade group. And so my classes are all out of, like, I have 7th grade class, an 8th grade class, a 9th grade class, 7th grade class, 8th grade class. So not all going in order. It's been nice to have that STEM room as an option as well, to be able to, like, okay, all of our stuff is set up in there, let's go in there, pull it out, we're ready to go. So it's been really nice, especially with new curriculum and the extra time it takes to go through all that. Having that room available as well. It's been really nice. The kids get really excited about it too. There's another day where we were both had 2 different classes in there at the same time. So it is nice to have a big space. And science has been using it, but a lot of other areas have been kind of getting in there too. So it has been really nice.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add besides the fact I teach the 9th grade science as well, but it's been nice to be able to have some curriculum that gives us a little bit more support than just like, here's some material, figure it out. And so it's been nice to have that as a resource. Ours has some digital stuff that we can use to still give them some information, but it's not always like a direct instruction situation. So it allows us to be a little bit more instruction based as well. So that's really, really nice too.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, Steve?
I'll be brief. we've got basketball, traveling basketball going. We're waiting for the Saturday basketball to start in the new North Gym. We're waiting for a part to go in and then an inspection. The reason why we're waiting is because those baskets lower in race. You get a little 3-year-old or third grader who can't shoot and make the basket, that makes it easier. Kudos to SDF Basket Builders, Julie and Heather. We have over 60 kids in those groups, and we have a potential child guide that will so preschool, Tina Baldwin came back for ECFE. We had a class tonight. We had 6 families in Appleton from 5:30 to 6:30. We did turkeys. And that's good. Daycare update, I'll do the correspondence and connections. Questions?
Questions for Steve? Thank you, Steve. Tony?
The activities department would like to thank you for the meat and cheese tray too. So thanks for that. Big Drew, all-state and cross-country. The boys as a team placed 11th in state. Junior high basketball starts, their first game is tomorrow. And our first varsity event for the winter starts next Tuesday. So we'll be off and running.
With a great sound system.
Not on
4 to 6 months.
Okay.
Just in time for graduation.
Okay. Anyone else? Rick, you got any?
Just under correspondence and communication, Steve, we wanna give a brief Little Eagles daycare update. I know that on page 77, it turned out pretty dark. But
So the only thing I don't have is
I've got the budget piece.
okay, so Melissa and I put this together. It's a Little Eagle synopsis. You each have a copy of it. We met with our parent board here last week. Gone a long way. They give us kudos and stuff, but the strides we've made with the changes in the daycare. Our first step was to communicate that they advised us to do is communicate with our parents. We have a ProCare system right now, which basically is a credit card. You come in, you slide your card, you pay for the month. The ProCare for $40 for a month will allow us to communicate, just like the K through 6 teachers do with their parents. So it'll be real-time family conversation with them. They had talked about getting Right Wheel, but since we already have ProCare in our correspondence from our financial supervisor said, oh, you didn't see these parts? So we're gonna go with that. There's a new policy. The second thing was the weather-related policy for Little Eagles. We used to go with the school, so if the school closed, Little Eagles would close. We can't do that because we have too many emergency workers, hospitals, yada, yada, snowplow drivers that need it. So if you look at the policy below, it says if school is closed the night before, Little Eagles will open at 8 a.m., close at 4 p.m. Families must sign up to utilize snow days. So the second piece I gave you was a snow day. So if you're a hospital worker, if you're a snowplow driver, and you know that you're gonna need daycare, even on the days Lackaparle school closes, parents will sign this and we'll know how many kids will have those days that we're actually closed. And if school is closed early, Little Eagles will close at 4. If school has late start, you call before 6 a.m., Little Eagles will open at 8 a.m. and close at 6 p.m. If school has late start, call out after 6 a.m. Little Eagles will open at normal time, which is 6 a.m. And the board was very receptive to this because they need to be open. Other communities around us are open, so. Little Eagles has 38 children in our daycare with 7 full-time staff during the day, 2 part-time staff during the day, and 3 high schoolers at the end of the day. So that's a total of 12 employees. So we're right with where we're supposed to be. as Missy said at number 3, there's only been 2 instances that we've had credit families accounts on a day there, staff shortage or staff calling in sick. So if water pipe was to break, we won't charge those families. You know, if it's something out of our control, then we're not gonna check. No. So, any questions? Anything I'm missing?
The only other thing would be, you challenged or you indicated some time ago, about 2 months ago, that in order for Little Eagles daycare to continue, we needed to have about $1,000 in commitments, where doesn't mean we have to have cash, but we needed to have up to that amount that would be available so the district would not be alone in sustaining any losses. I'm very excited to share not only the good news Steve has, but all told, there's been up to this date, and there's about a week left, and we're waiting to hear from 3 or 4 other places, but they've raised $90,900 in commitments. It's actually on page 77. You can't see it there, but Madison Healthcare up to $40,000. The City of Madison up to $40,000. The Madison Chamber of Commerce $5,000. Ag Country Credit had took up a collection in their offices and generated $3,100. Old National Bank through SWIFT, Southwest Initiative Foundation, $2,500, and United Prairie Bank, $300. In addition, they're applying for another grant through the state that could be up to $40,000 and through the course of the year. And we're waiting to hear from 2 or 3 other entities, like I said. So I think we can safely say that the response was very positive. And I have been working closely with Steve and Melissa. And so I can provide a testimony to, they've rewritten job descriptions, they've developed a flow chart, they came up with a communication system. And so I think the response has been terrific. In addition to all that, they're working hard to try to run a balanced budget, so we don't need any of those dollars. But if we do, the district should be avoiding the situation it was in where it was covering it by itself. So a lot of good news with that. And then the only other thing that I have is Scott and Tony and I wanted to visit with you, school board, about this winter and what to do when we have a snowstorm that closes school or that doesn't allow us to open. Essentially, I'll just start, you guys jump in. But basically, we already had a snow day, as you know. And basically, our policy right now is if we close, there are no activities. And just as having had quite a bit of experience with this, you hardly ever get the call right, you know. And there are many days where we end up having to close in the morning. And then the sun comes out and there's all kinds of beautiful weather and everybody's going, jeepers, we've got a ball game or a music concert or something like that evening. And what I'm used to is allowing common sense to rule. Doesn't mean we have to do that here, but I talked to Scott, I talked to Tony about this. And it isn't that athletics or the extracurriculars are more important. It's not that at all. In fact, just the opposite. There are many times when the AD gets their schedule set, and as we go through the winter, if we end up canceling events as we go and they try to make those events up, then all of a sudden we're playing 3 or 2 or 4 nights a week as we come down, get close to tournament time. And there are enough times when we could have avoided that by saying, you know, we either made the best call we could and the weather changed, or it was supposed to, it just was dangerous to start school in the morning, so we couldn't. However, the day materialized into a pretty nice day. So we talked about asking you what you want to do. Would you be okay if we change the policy and kind of use a common sense approach where we'd all get together and decide that? Or it's a safety issue too. So it could be that you say, we want to stay with the policy that we have now, but I think we thought it would be good to bring it up and get your opinion. I think Tony's talked to the other activity directors.
Yeah, I talked to the other ADs, our conference. Of the, 11 other schools plus ourselves, there was only 3 of them that have that plan. But the one TMB said, while we have that, it is very rarely ever used. They just like to have that flexibility to say yes or no to it. We did talk about it at the activities meeting that we had a couple weeks ago Monday. Eric was there for that, so I guess he was impartial either way, if I remember correctly.
Maybe you want to describe also what we had with the musical that.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, I would assume that in most cases this wouldn't come to fruition, but for example, the musical is scheduled to be on Friday evening. And we called school off that day because of the weather. And Tony and I were communicating with Mr. Felton, and at 1 o'clock I drove up to the high school, and honestly, 50% of the road was completely dry. I mean, it just wasn't treacherous conditions at all. Honestly, Saturday for the 2 o'clock show, snow started coming down, and it was probably it was riskier to be having people come out on Saturday, although not bad, but riskier on Saturday than it would have been Friday. So that would be one example of where things just maybe didn't get quite as bad as we thought they were going to get. I think we were anticipating maybe a little bit more snow. Well, the winds were there, the visibility was fine. But we just decided that we weren't even going to approach you on that, just because I don't think any of you wanted a 2 o'clock phone call saying, hey, what do you think? So hence we're here with this discussion today.
Yeah, and we really want to present it to you when we don't have a snowstorm and you have some time to think it through and, make a decision where there's nothing pending. And it obviously is totally your call, but it does make sense sometimes to have an event because the weather changed and, it's the weather. We're never going to get it right. But what we would propose is if it's something you want to do, you could direct us and we would bring it up at our next meeting. And this would be like a first reading of that policy. And you take action on it in the future, if you wanted to.
I guess I wouldn't be opposed to using the common sense approach. I mean, I know in December we got both a band concert and a choir concert, and those are squeezed in on a Monday in between everything else. So, I mean, kind of like the whole musical thing. I mean, if it presented itself where you could, instead of trying to squeeze a band concert in somewhere else, I mean, that's kind of makes sense to me.
I'm okay with it. The only thing I can think of that would probably be a different approach would be the kids that live out in the country that maybe don't get plowed out. And so I don't want somebody to be like, oh my God, I gotta get to the basketball game or my wrestling and worry about that. That's the only issue that I would have.
And that's a very good point, because right now, if that happens, we close, right? We don't have practices, we don't have anything. And we can say, well, it's just voluntary if you come into practice, but I think you're right, Shannon, kids feel a certain pressure that maybe we want to avoid.
And parents too, I mean.
Parents, yeah.
Because I think, it's easy if we were all in town.
Right.
Because I know.
Shannon makes a good point that if you're out, even where I live, and plows don't come out regularly. And I guess what I would not want to see is some kid getting disciplined for not showing up to practice or not showing up potentially for a game. That doesn't go back on them in some way that they got to sit out the next game because they didn't make it to practice, et cetera. Because I think the parents should have some choice in this too. And if the parent says, I'm not sending you out, that should be an absolute excused absence from whatever that event is.
I think we talked we talked more about events and not practice. I think the practice thing was wasn't something that we were considering. I think it was more of an event at that time. Yeah, I do agree to parent input, how do you handle that? But there comes the common sense thing. While it might be nice, the road still may not be altogether doable. So that's got to play a factor in it as well.
Well, because I'm just thinking of certain kids that are into their sports pretty well and they live in the country. And if the plows don't get out there, I could still see them trying to get in. And that's my only concern.
Well, we will leave it as it is now, and then by the next board meeting, if you have interest in seeing that, you okay with that, Scott, Tony?
Yeah.
So we'll live with it just like it is now, but at the next board meeting, if it's something you want to pursue, then that gives you some time to think about it. I don't want to do anything that puts more pressure on coaches or, to have practice or not have practice either. But I hate to lose some good nights if we have a lot of.
Well, and I would be open to if the weather turns, like Scott or you calling us and say, what do you think? Or because we can, we kind of know our communities and know our surrounding. Like, do you think we could have this game? Because, the sun came out, the wind stopped, plows are out,
I even think for most coaches, they're all in communication with their players anyway. And if you throw out the communication, hey, is it possible that you can all make it? And if one or two say no, then there's the answer. You don't play that night unless you have your whole team. I mean, I'd say for most sports that, captains have a group or whatever, they're all talking. So, I mean,
Yeah, I'm okay with playing the event. I just don't want repercussions to the kids that don't make it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll play it by ear as we go. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Oh, I have one question for you. That piece that's supposed to be installed in the other gym, in the practice gym, and the air handler for the fire alarm,
Oh, yeah.
do we know when that's gonna be installed?
Well, it was supposed to be today, it was supposed to start today, but as of about noon, Adam and I were in there and nobody was working on it.
So which company is it?
Overall,
Wilmer Electric?
I talked to Chris and asked him why we was here, because they came out Friday to do it. They didn't bring the wire, they didn't bring the conduit, they said it was more of a job than what the guy who came out thought it was, so.
So you didn't look at the plans again, essentially.
might have been.
Okay, we won't pay any bill for that trip.
Oh, yeah. Do we know, so did he say when they're gonna come out then?
He told me on Friday that they were gonna have another guy here today,
Today?
and I never saw anyone.
Do we still owe Wilmer Electric any money?
I don't know that I would know.
Well, if we get a bill, we're not paying it.
Well, no, where I'm going with it is that if we owe them, I don't know, $20,000 or whatever it is right now, that we don't pay a bill till they show up and get it done. Because we withhold all their money till this is done, because this is just, I mean, they put us in a tight spot.
Absolutely, and we've been on this for 2 weeks since we found out that we didn't have it. I almost forgot, but Adam Loy is here, and you want to share the information you have? We've got a couple things.
You guys know Craig Comus, last day is coming up here. But he holds the licenses, the water, wastewater, boiler license. So he has proposed that he will continue to hang his licenses here at a fee. I got it all on the back there until they're able to be obtained by either me or someone else in the district. So right now it's $200 for the 3 licenses at the high school, which would be the boiler license, the wastewater, and the water. $100 in Madison. A total of $700 per month, which is pretty fair because I talked to the person who does it in Appleton. He gave me a quote of about $1,700 a month just for the water and wastewater license. And that would go until, well, Kurt can get his, upgrade his boiler license. We're looking at January, got his application in, until the state accepts it, approves it. We have to use Craig's, but hopefully we're looking by middle of January to have that taken care of. And then water and wastewater, you have to be at the district for a year. So I could take one of them until next March, they offer a class. And then you only take one or the other, then the next one will be offered in the fall. So slowly, has the licenses for. So I need approval for asking for approval. Make a contract to pay him for his licenses.
And then he would carry out the responsibility shown on that.
Yep,
chart,
on the
right?
second page there. He'd stop out twice a month at each location, well, Madison, for the boiler, and here, to check on the system, to check on the paperwork.
No, I think this,
$25 if he's the only one knows how to run some of that stuff out there. And if something breaks, and there's an emergency, he would come fix it for $25.
okay. Well, I think this is great. Kudos to Craig for helping us out,
Yeah,
honestly. That's huge on his part. I don't have any problem with it unless.
Nope, gotta do it. It's cheaper than the
Danny, any
alternative.
questions on it or concerns?
Not at all. We don't have
Okay.
any other choice, so.
All right, so I'll take a motion to approve the maintenance plan or agreement with Craig Comas until we get our staff the licenses that they need.
So moved.
So motion by Scott,
I'll second.
second by Shannon. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Hey,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So thank you again, Adam, for doing that. Thank you, Craig, for stepping up and helping us. Appreciate it. Anything else this evening? Oh. Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Shannon,
second.
seconded by Scott. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.